Hello and welcome to our first day of U.S. Studies Online. My name is Melissa Blank. I'm here at the Florissant Excel Center, and I am very excited to have you in the class this term. Couple of things to get out of the way. Please review the syllabus, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me either on Google Classroom or you can always email me, and I'll be happy to get back with you with any questions you have. So each day I'm going to have a short video like this that goes through the slideshow. Some of the slideshows do have short videos to watch and some questions to answer in your guided notes. So I'm not going to play the videos on the screen here because that's going to take about extra time and the sound quality won't be as well. So I will post the slideshows to Google Classroom or the links to the videos so that you can have access to them there. I want to take a quick second to say hello to some of my former night students who I know are going to be in this class. Guys, I'm really glad you're sticking with the school and you're doing great, and I can't wait to see you guys at graduation. For all of my new friends who are either downtown or one of our other locations, welcome, and I hope that you enjoy this class. We're going to learn a lot about American history from the period of Reconstruction, which is post-Civil War, up into as close to the present as we can get in 8 weeks. So we'll probably finish up around World War II, maybe a little bit after that if we get through this stuff quickly. So I have attached guided notes. These are for you to fill out while you're going through the slideshows. There are video questions included on them, so I will probably ask, actually, I will ask that you submit your finished guided notes at the end of each unit so that I can see that you've gone through all the videos, that you've answered questions, and that way I can give you points for that. And at the end of the day, it's all about getting some good points in the grade book. All right, so let's get started with Reconstruction Part 1. And let me see if I'm going to get this going. There we go. So we have to start with the Civil War. The Civil War, of course, took place between 1861 and 1865. Most of us probably have heard at some point in our educational career that it was, we know some of the basics, right? It was fought between the North or the northern states, as you can see here in this map, where the United States is kind of sawed in half there, and the South. The North was known as the Union. The South was known as the Confederacy. Each part of the United States, or I should say each section here, was controlled by a Army general. For the Union, it was General Ulysses S. Grant, who lived in Missouri. Actually, you can go visit his home in the St. Louis area. And then for the Confederacy, it was Robert E. Lee. And despite what you might have heard over the years and all the different theories of what the war was about, here's what it comes down to. It was about slavery. It was about the right to own other human beings. Any other theory that you read out there or that comes up in social media feed, you can always tie it back to slavery. And that's why it was such a deep-seated issue for our country. And it was an issue that was seen by the founding fathers as they knew it was going to be a problem. But like all good politicians, they pushed it off until they had to deal with it. So on your guided notes, there's some questions of what does freedom mean to you? So for example, when I think of freedom, I think of the Bill of Rights, those 10 amendments and guarantees that promised us freedom of speech, freedom to not be having the army come in and take over your home. So share with me, I think I put 2 or 3 things on the guide notes of what freedom means to you. All right, so we're going to take a look at the 2 documents that really kind of got Reconstruction going. And part of this takes place during the tail end of the Civil War, and that's the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. These will be attachments for you, so please go ahead and open them up on another tab or print them out and take a look at them. So the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. This was ratified, approved, and added on January 31st of 1865. It abolished slavery throughout the United States. So what the 13th Amendment actually says is down here in italics at the bottom, that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Think about that for a second. On its face value, it looks good, right? No one can be considered a slave. It's illegal. It's in our Constitution. But that bold statement right there, except as a punishment for crime. Think about that. If you think about the modern penal system, the modern jail system, and if you think about where prisoners are forced to work. Now, I'm not talking about within the jail system itself, like, doing laundry or cooking food for inmates, things like that, but the chain gangs, the breaking your back labor throughout the state or the country. How's that any different from slavery? And if this kind of catches your attention, I want you to hold on to that for a second, because throughout the next few weeks, as we go through these different lessons, you're going to see a common thread that begins right here, which is, here's the little exception. We're getting rid of slavery, but. So keep an eye on this. So the years of 1865 to 1877 are what we call in American history Reconstruction. The turbulent era following the Civil War, when attempts were made to address the inequities created by slavery and the readmission of the Confederacy, to the Union. So here's what was going on. You have the northern states, who are controlled by that time by what was considered what would be the Democratic Party today. Back then, they were known as the Republican parties or the Radical Republicans. And we'll get into this a little more at a future video, and the Confederacy was going to be made up of what was then called Southern Democrats, which would be the equivalent to our modern Republican Party. So they switched names over history. I believe it's around the 1930s or 40s. And the problem that the Republicans are having up north is that we've got to bring these states back into the Union. We've got to then make them willing to work with us. If anyone's paying attention to modern politics, you probably know that trying to get one side or the other to work with each other in the past, I don't know, since 2016, has been rather difficult, right? They're not willing to compromise with each other. This was the problem that they were worried about back then too. And so they had to find a way to bring those southern states back into the Union, but not try to make it so they're going to want to leave and quit again. So we do have a video here, and there will be an attachment with the questions for Reconstruction Crash Course History. I love these series of videos. They do a great job of explaining what was going on and what people were thinking and feeling. And plus the host here, I forget what his name is. I love his voice. It's so deep and relaxing and calming, but he does a great job with these. So I am gonna go ahead and skip to the next slide, and hopefully it'll let me without trying to play too much of the video. Let's see if we can just skip to 8. All right, Reconstruction plans. So during this time, there was different ideas with what was then called the Radical Republicans about how do we fix the country now. And so these were some of the questions that were being floated around. Whose voices should be included in the process of binding up the wounds of our nation? Who should be included and who should be excluded in the nation that would emerge from Reconstruction? So, like, for example, should we include Robert E. Lee, who led the Confederacy, or should we not include him? Should we include all the former slave owners, or should we not include them? Next question, could the nation heal if the former Confederates felt that they were being punished by a loss of power and status? This is a question that's been asked throughout history from conquering countries or countries that are viewed as the winners versus the losers. And we'll see this again when we fast forward to World War I and even World War II. Next, could democracy thrive if African Americans were not guaranteed equal rights in the new nation? A side note here, throughout American history, historians have used different terminology. I know, like, for example, today, a lot of young Black people want to be called Black, right? Um, in the 80s, 90s, the politically correct term was African Americans. So I'm going to kind of probably go back and forth with that. I don't mean disrespect by using one term versus the other. It's usually due to what resource I'm reading and where I'm getting the information of. If it's a little bit older, from like written in the 80s and 90s, you're going to see African Americans. If it's more modern materials, you'll see that historians will refer to as Black. So the question there, if these formerly enslaved people weren't guaranteed equal rights, well, then what was the point of the Civil War, right? What's to stop the South from redoing it all over again? And finally, how could the nation balance the goals of healing the country and justice? And I really want you to think about these questions, especially in light of where our country is today. You know, whichever side of the aisle you fall on, we're facing kind of some of these same issues, and who will come out with a solution that will be good for the country. All right, we're going to take a look at two plans. I'm going to take a quick drink here. All right. So there are two different plans. One was from the new president. It's Andrew Johnson. Oh my gosh, it's been too long since I've taught this. President Johnson, who was the vice president for Abraham Lincoln. And when Lincoln was assassinated, Johnson assumed power. Now, the thing to know about Johnson is he was from the South. He was a Southern Democrat. He was a former slave owner. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. So his plan was to just, all I'm focused in is uniting all the states back together. That's my only focus. That's my only care. In theory, yes, that sounds good. However, I don't care about all these other issues that the radical Republicans are going to care about. Now, unfortunate for Johnson, he was in the White House, kind of like with Biden recently. Biden was the president, but Congress was controlled by Republicans largely. So when you got the opposing parties, they usually don't get along and compromise much. So the radical Republicans focused on remaking the United States. So if we're all going to come back together, let's fix it. Let's fix this problem that the Civil War just ended. So they promoted advances in the rights of African Americans. And later on, the problem would be is that for every step forward they made for civil rights for formerly enslaved individuals, it would be undermined by Johnson's presidency. It was a back and forth pull. And again, this is another theme that you'll see that continues through our course. So presidential Reconstruction was basically ultimately a failure, especially Johnson's plan. So, and again, it's so funny how much previous history can show you what's going on in the world today, which is why all good history teachers, I was a professional historian for 20 years working with state parks and other sites. And it's really true the saying that if you don't learn history, it's going to repeat itself. So this first one is a prime example. So President Johnson offered pardons to white Southern elites. Who was getting those pardons? All those former slave owners, which is not a good thing. He allowed the new state governments a free hand in managing local affairs. So what does that mean? That means that, okay, state of Mississippi, you were naughty for leaving the Union, but now that you're back, I'm not going to overstep and come down to Mississippi, come down to Jackson and tell you all what to do. I trust that you're going to handle this in the right way if you're coming back to the Union. Kind of one of those wink, wink, nod, nod things, right? The third thing, the conduct of white Southerners, which is, of course, their tactic was, I'm going to use violence against my formerly enslaved population. If they haven't hightailed it out of here, I'm going to, not be nice to them because I want to get that power back that I lost in the Civil War. And that's really what turned the radical Republicans in the North against the plan. And of course, the ultimate result, former slaveholders returned to power. So this is setting up a pretty juicy fight for Johnson in his presidency. So that is all for the notes today. So I do want you to go back and watch the video that was included. Finish this section of notes and then go ahead and submit them to me. If you have problems with submitting them or filling it out online, by all means, write it down on a notebook piece of paper, take a picture of it and send it to me. That is completely fine. I don't mind that at all. If you do have some more technology problems, I'm going to admit I'm a Gen Xer who sometimes has my own computer tech issues, and I usually go ask some of the younger people in the building. Check with somebody at your school, the local school, see if they can help you. I will try to do it virtually, but I am not the best person to explain technology. So maybe call your life coach, ask them, hey, I can't figure out how to submit this, see if they can show you. Ask another student. And if nothing else, I'll do my best to find an answer. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. See you tomorrow.